I am Margaret. I am 68 years old, and if my life has taught me one brutal lesson, it is that blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. It just makes the betrayal cut deeper. I gave my son and his wife a down payment of $250,000 for their first home, and in exchange, they handed me a sticky note on a refrigerator door that effectively declared me mentally incompetent. They thought they were leaving behind a senile, grieving retiree who would be too confused to notice her bank account had been drained while she slept. They thought I was a helpless relic. What they didn't know is that the company they worked for, the global conglomerate that funds their first-class flights and designer suits, isn't owned by a board of anonymous investors. It is owned by me. By tomorrow morning, they won't just be fired, they will be destitute, and I will be the one signing their eviction notices. If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from, or what time it is for you. I woke up to a silence so profound it felt heavy, like a physical weight pressing down on my chest. It wasn't the peaceful, companionable silence I had shared with William for 45 years, the kind filled with the rustle of the Sunday paper and the smell of dark roast coffee. This was a sterile, vacuum-sealed silence. It was the sound of abandonment. William had been gone for 7 weeks. The pancreatic cancer had been a thief in the night, stealing him away in a blur of hospitals and hushed conversations. I was left alone in our sprawling estate in Seattle, a fortress of stone and memory that suddenly felt more like a mausoleum. But I hadn't been entirely alone. Brandon, my 40-year-old son, had insisted on moving in. "We can't leave you like this, Mom," he had said at the funeral, clutching my arm with a grip that felt frantic. "Kylie and I will stay. We'll help you manage things. You're vulnerable right now." I had believed him. I wanted to believe him. Grief does that to a woman. It cracks your armor and lets the desperate hope seep in. Along with Brandon came Kylie, a woman whose handshake was as weak as her character, and her parents, Vivian and Derek. I had never liked Vivian. She was a woman who walked into a room and immediately calculated the net worth of everyone inside. At the wake, while I was staring at William's casket, I saw Vivian staring at the chandelier, her eyes narrowing as if she were appraising it for auction. I threw off the duvet and sat up. The house was cold. The thermostat, usually set to a comfortable 72 degrees, felt like it had been turned off completely. I walked out into the hallway, my bare feet sinking into the plush carpet. The guest wing where Brandon and Kylie had been staying was dark. The door was open. I walked in. The bed was stripped, not just unmade, but stripped to the mattress pad. The closets were open and gaping, wire hangers clinking softly in the draft from an open window. I moved down the hall to the master guest suite where Vivian and Derek had set up their command post. It was the same story. Empty, scrubbed clean. It was as if they had never been there. They hadn't just left, they had evacuated. I made my way to the kitchen, the heart of the house where William used to hum while he watered his herbs. The stainless steel appliances gleamed cold and gray in the morning light. That's when I saw it. A single neon yellow sticky note stuck to the refrigerator door. It was offensively bright against the brushed steel. I pulled it off. The handwriting was Brandon's, looping, jagged, rushed. "Mom, we realized you aren't in a position to handle your finances right now. You're confused. You're grieving. We're doing this for your own good. We'll manage your allowance. Don't make a scene. Don't call the police. If you want to see us or your future grandchildren again, you'll trust us. Love, allowance." The word hung in the air, tasting of bile. I didn't tremble. I didn't cry. A strange, icy calm washed over me. It was a sensation I hadn't felt in 20 years. Since the days of hostile takeovers and boardroom blood. I folded the note into a perfect square and slipped it into the pocket of my robe. I didn't make coffee. I didn't pace the floor, wringing my hands. I walked straight to my study on the ground floor. This was the one room in the house that remained strictly a William had called it Margaret's bunker. It was lined with mahogany bookshelves filled with first editions and naval history volumes. I walked to the third shelf on the east wall. I pulled the spine of a leather-bound copy of The Art of War. A pneumatic hiss echoed through the room as the entire bookcase swung inward, revealing a steel door with a biometric scanner. Vivian and Derek saw a retired logistics manager who drove a 10-year-old Buick and wore cardigans with frayed elbows. They saw what I wanted them to see. They didn't know about the Obsidian Group. They didn't know that when I sold my first defense logistics firm in the 90s, I didn't retire. I reinvested. I diversified. I built an empire from the shadows because fame is a liability, but power, true anonymous power, is an asset. I placed my palm on the scanner. A green light swept across my skin. The heavy steel door clicked and swung open. Inside, the air was conditioned to a crisp 60 degrees. The room was dominated by a bank of servers humming with blue LED lights and a curved desk with 4 high-resolution monitors. This wasn't a home office. It was a command center capable of running a small country's economy. I sat down in the ergonomic chair and woke the system. My fingers flew across the mechanical keyboard. I didn't check my email. I logged directly into the secure banking portal of the Obsidian Group's private trust. I had created a specific sub-account for Brandon years ago. It was an emergency fund, a test I had hoped he would never have to take. I had placed exactly $2 million in it, granting him joint signatory rights just before William died, claiming it was for household expenses. I looked at the screen. Balance yesterday, $2 million. Balance today, $4,850. Single wire transfer had been executed at 3:42 a.m. The destination, a numbered account at the bank, Privy, in Monte Carlo, Monaco. The beneficiary, Vanguard Systems LLC, Vivian. I leaned back in the chair. Vivian was the CEO of Vanguard Systems, a mid-sized tech consulting firm. She walked around like she owned the place, boasting about her quarterly earnings and her vision. She had no idea that Vanguard was a wholly owned subsidiary of the Obsidian Group. She was an employee, a glorified manager, and she had just used her corporate account to launder stolen money from the owner of the company. I picked up the secure satellite phone on the desk. It had one speed dial. Parker Price. A voice answered instantly. Crisp, alert, no pleasantries. Parker was my chief legal counsel, and the only other person on earth who knew the full extent of my holdings. He was 60 years old, dressed in Savile Row suits, even at 6 a.m., and possessed a mind like a diamond drill. They took the bait. Parker, I said, watching the transaction log on the screen. The full amount, Parker asked. $2 million, wired to Monaco. Beneficiary is Vanguard Systems, Vivian's personal holding account. She's sloppier than we predicted, Parker noted, his voice devoid of surprise. Linking a theft directly to a corporate account she doesn't actually own. That's not just criminal, it's professionally embarrassing. She thinks she owns it, I reminded him. She thinks I'm a senile old woman and she is the master of the universe. She thinks she's untouchable. Shall we initiate the standard freeze? No, I said, my voice dropping an octave. This isn't a standard freeze. This is a scorched earth campaign. Activate the Osiris Protocol. There was a pause on the line. The Osiris Protocol was a nuclear option we had designed a decade ago for a worst-case scenario involving hostile state actors or massive internal treason. It didn't just freeze assets. It aggressively traced and locked every single financial instrument connected to the target by 6 degrees of separation. Margaret, Parker said cautiously, Osiris will lock down Vanguard's global operations. It will freeze payroll, vendor payments, the Singapore shipping lines, everything. It will cost us millions in operational downtime. Do it, I commanded. I want Vivian to feel the walls closing in before she even finishes her espresso. I want her credit cards to stop working. I want her hotel key to fail. I want her to realize that she hasn't just stolen money, she has stolen from God. Understood, Parker said. Executing Osiris now. The trap is sprung. What about the family aspect? Leave Audrey out of it for now, I said, thinking of my daughter. She needs plausible deniability. I'm going to see her. Margaret, Audrey hasn't spoken to you in 6 months, not since the argument about the loan. I know, I said, standing up, but war makes for strange alliances. I'll call you when I have her. I hung up. I looked at the photo of William on the desk. He was smiling, that knowing, gentle smile that had anchored me for decades. You were right, Bill, I whispered. They didn't love us. They loved the idea of what we could give them. I drove my Buick to the industrial district on the south side of the city. It was a gritty landscape of corrugated metal warehouses, chain link fences, and the smell of diesel and ozone. I pulled up in front of Ironclad Fabrication, a large nondescript building with a rusted sign. This was Audrey's kingdom, my daughter, the disappointment. While Brandon had chased degrees in art history and marketing, funded by my checks, Audrey had dropped out of college to weld. She loved the heat, the metal, the tangible reality of building something that lasted. Vivian and Derek had sneered at her at Thanksgiving dinners, making jokes about blue-collar hobbies. Brandon had looked at her with pity. I had let them. That was my greatest sin. I had let them treat my daughter like a failure because I was too busy playing the role of the benevolent, passive matriarch. I walked into the shop. The air was thick with metal dust and the shrieking sound of a grinder. Sparks cascaded in a beautiful, violent shower from the far corner where a figure in a leather apron and welding mask was working on a massive I-beam. I stood there for a moment watching her. She was good. Her welds were precise, stacked like dimes. She was a master of her craft, and I had never told her that. She turned off the torch and flipped up her mask. Audrey was 42. Built strong with grease smeared across her forehead and eyes that held a permanent glint of defensive anger. She saw me and stiffened. She didn't smile. "Mom, is everything okay? Is it, Dad?" "No, Audrey, Dad is still gone." She wiped her hands on a rag, not moving toward me. "Then what are you doing here? Did you get lost on the way to the country club? Or did Brandon send you to tell me I need to wear a dress to the next family gathering?" "Brandon is in Monte Carlo," I said, my voice fighting to be heard over the ambient noise of the shop, with Vivian and Derek. "Good for him," Audrey spat, throwing the rag onto a workbench. "Let me guess, you paid for it." Another networking trip for Vivian, another cultural experience for Brandon. "Why are you here, Margaret?" She called me Margaret. That stung more than the anger. "They stole $2 million from me this morning," I said plainly. Audrey froze. She looked at me, searching for the punchline. "What? They drained the emergency trust. They left a note on the fridge saying I was senile and that they were taking control of my finances for my own protection. They're in Monaco right now spending it." Audrey's face went through a complex series of contortions: disbelief, shock, and then a dark, simmering fury. She walked over to me, towering in her work boots. "I told you," she hissed, pointing a gloved finger at my chest. "I told you 5 years ago. I told you Vivian was a snake. I told you Brandon was weak and that Derek was poisoning him against us. I told you. And you sat there, carving the turkey and telling me to be nice to the family." "You were right," I said. Audrey blinked. She had been ready for a fight, for a defense, for me to make excuses. She wasn't ready for agreement. "I was blind," I continued. "I was trying to keep the peace for your father's sake. I thought I could manage them. I thought if I gave them enough, they wouldn't need to take." "I was wrong. They are parasites, Audrey, and they have crossed the line. So call the police," Audrey said, crossing her massive arms. "Why are you telling me? You want me to go over there and beat Vivian up? Because I'll happily do that." "No," I said. "Police are for amateurs. Police take years. Police give them a chance to hire lawyers and play the victim. I'm not looking for a legal settlement, Audrey. I'm looking for total annihilation." "Annihilation?" Audrey laughed, a harsh barking sound. "Mom, you're a retired logistics manager. What are you going to do? Cancel their magazine subscriptions?" "Come with me," I said. "There's something you need to see." The drive back to the house was silent. Audrey sat in the passenger seat of the Buick, fuming, looking out the window. When we pulled into the driveway, she looked at the empty house with a mix of nostalgia and resentment. I led her straight to the study. I opened the bookshelf. "What the hell?" Audrey muttered as the hidden door swung open. I ushered her into the server room. She looked around, her eyes widening as she took in the racks of servers, the cooling systems, the monitors displaying global financial heat maps. "What is this?" she asked, her voice hushed. "Mom, are you working for the CIA?" "No," I said, walking to the desk. "I am the Obsidian Group." Audrey frowned. "Obsidian? The private equity firm, the one that bought out the shipping yards in Jersey last year, the one that owns the patent on the new guidance chips?" "Yes," I said, "and the one that owns 90% of Vanguard Systems." Audrey looked at me, her brain trying to recalibrate 30 years of assumptions. You own Vivian's company. Vivian owns 10%. I gave it to her 20 years ago to keep her quiet after I caught her skimming off the top. I let her play CEO. I let her think she was a big shot because it kept her busy and it kept Brandon happy. But I own the controlling share. I own the building she sits in. I own the car she drives. I own the lease on her apartment. I pulled a thick leather portfolio from the safe beneath the desk. I tossed it onto the desk in front of Audrey. "This is the incorporation document," I said. "And this," I pointed to a transfer deed I had prepared with Parker weeks ago, "is a transfer of ownership." Audrey stared at the papers. "Transfer to who?" "To you," I said. She recoiled as if the papers were radioactive. "Me, Mom, I'm a welder. I don't want your empire. I don't want your money. I built my shop with my own hands because I didn't want to owe you anything. This isn't a gift, Audrey. It's a weapon." I leaned forward, I need a partner. Parker is a lawyer. He fights with paper. I need someone who fights with iron. I need someone who knows what it's like to be underestimated, someone who has been burned by these people just as badly as I have. I looked her in the eye. Brandon chose his side. He chose the gold plating and the lies. You chose the work. I'm asking you to help me finish this. I'm asking you to help me take back the family name. Audrey looked at the monitors where the Osiris Protocol was flashing a red status bar. Target assets locking, 85% complete. She looked at the photo of her father on the desk. She looked at her calloused hands. Then she looked at me. The resentment was still there, but it was being overtaken by something else. A grim determination. Vanguard Systems, Audrey said slowly. That means Vivian works for me. Technically, I smiled coldly. She's your junior employee. Audrey picked up the pen. Okay, let's burn them down. The sunlight in Monte Carlo was golden, bathing the ancient cobblestones in a warm glow that felt mocking given the circumstances. Vivian adjusted her silk scarf and smiled at her reflection in the showroom window of the Ferrari dealership on Avenue Princess Grace. It's perfect. Vivian, Derek Coude, running his hand over the hood of a silver 812 Super. It screams success. It screams I've arrived, Vivian corrected him, puffing out her chest. Margaret was holding us back for years with her penny pinch. Now that we have the capital, we need to look the part. Brandon stood a few feet away, looking nervous. He was wearing a new Gucci suit that cost more than his car back home, but he couldn't stop checking his phone. Kylie, do you think Mom has called? Maybe we should check the voicemail. Relax, babe, Kylie said, looking at her reflection in the car window. We left the note. She knows the score. She's probably just sitting in her chair, confused, waiting for us to tell her what to do. We're doing her a favor, really, managing her assets better than she ever could. Signora, the salesman approached, holding a portable card terminal. For the deposit, 50,000 euros. Of course, Vivian said grandly. She pulled out her black titanium American Express card, the corporate card for Vanguard Systems. She tapped it on the machine with a flourish. Beep. Declined. The salesman frowned. Apologies, senor. Perhaps the chip. Try again. Vivian laughed nervously. Banks, right, always flagging the big purchases. She swiped it this time. Beep. Declined. Contact issuer. Derek's smile faltered. Vivian, what's going on? It's fine. It's fine, Vivian snapped. She pulled out her personal visa. Use this one. Beep. Declined. Sweat began to bead on Vivian's forehead. She pulled out a third card, then a fourth. Each beep was a hammer blow to her ego. Kyle, Vivian barked, give me your card. Kylie fumbled for her wallet. She handed over her card. Beep. Declined. The atmosphere in the showroom shifted instantly. The salesman's obsequious smile vanished, replaced by a cold, suspicious stare. He signaled to a security guard by the door. Is there a problem? Vivian demanded, her voice rising to cover her panic. I am the CEO of Vanguard Systems. I have millions in these accounts. The machine says fraud alert. Stolen assets, the salesman said, his voice icy. And it says to hold the card and contact the authorities. At that moment, two blue lights flashed outside. A sleek police cruiser pulled up to the curb. Two officers stepped out, adjusting their belts. No, Brandon whispered, backing away. No, 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 this wasn't supposed to happen. My phone rang at 3:15 p.m. PST. It was an international number. I put it on speaker. Audrey was sitting on the leather sofa in the war room, drinking a bottle of water. She leaned forward. Margaret, Vivian's voice came through, trembling with a mixture of rage and terror. What the hell did you do? We're at a dealership. The police are here. They're saying our accounts are frozen. Hello, Vivian, I said calmly. How is Monte Carlo? Don't play games with me, old woman, Vivian shrieked. I know you did something. You messed with the bank. Undo it. Undo it right now, or I swear to God you'll what? I interrupted. You'll steal another $2 million. You can't, Vivian, because the Osiris Protocol has locked every asset you have. Your corporate accounts, your personal savings, your retirement fund, even that secret offshore account in the Caymans you thought I didn't know about. It's all gone. Osiris, Vivian stammered. What are you talking about? I'm the CEO. You can't lock my company. Correction, Audrey spoke up, her voice deep and rumbling. You were the CEO, Audrey, Vivian asked, confused. What is she doing there? Put Margaret back on. I'm here, Vivian, Audrey said, and I'm looking at the incorporation papers. It seems you serve at the pleasure of the board, and as the new majority shareholder of Obsidian Group, which owns Vanguard. I'm afraid your services are no longer required. You can't. Vivian's voice broke. Mom. Brandon's voice came on the line. He was sobbing. Mom, please. They're taking our passports. They're putting handcuffs on Kylie, Mom. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them we were just borrowing it. Borrowing? I asked. The note on my fridge didn't say I owe you, Brandon. It said allowance. It said I was incompetent. I didn't mean it, he cried. Vivian made me write it. She said it was the only way to protect the money from me, Audrey finished. Yeah, we figured that part out. I'm sorry, Brandon wailed. Just make it stop. I can't, I said. The fraud flag is federal. It's out of my hands. Enjoy the flight home, Brandon. I hear extradition flights are very long and very uncomfortable. I hung up. The room was silent again, but this time, it was the silence of victory. The victory lasted exactly 4 hours. At 7:30 p.m., Parker's face appeared on the main monitor. He looked pale. We have a problem, Parker said. What kind of problem? I asked. Vivian has a lawyer, a shark named Sterling Shaw. He just filed an emergency motion with the Washington State Supreme Court. He produced a sworn affidavit from a Dr. Ayers, a psychiatrist, claiming that he examined you 3 weeks ago and diagnosed you with advanced dementia. That's a lie, I said, standing up. I've never met a Dr. Ayers. It doesn't matter, Parker said quickly. The document looks real enough that a judge just granted a temporary emergency stay on the asset seizure. The freeze is lifting. Margaret, in 20 minutes. What? Audrey yelled. You're telling me they can just unfreeze the money based on a fake doctor's note? It's a protective measure, Parker explained. If the account holder is mentally incompetent, her actions to freeze the assets of her caretakers are considered invalid until proven otherwise. Shaw played the system perfectly. 20 minutes. I looked at the timer on the screen. If that money unfreezes, Vivian will move it. She won't send it to a bank this time. She'd dump it into crypto. Once it hits the blockchain, it's gone forever. We need to refreeze it, Audrey said. How? We need a counter order, Parker said, but the courts are closed. The only way to override the stay is to trigger the kill switch in the original 1995 buyout contract. It allows the majority shareholder to unilaterally seize all assets in the event of gross negligence. So do it, I said. I can't, Parker said. The 1995 contract was physical. It was never digitized. It's in the vault at the downtown office. I'm in Connecticut. I can't get there in 20 minutes. I looked at Audrey. The downtown office? That's 10 miles from here in rush hour traffic. I can make it, Audrey said, grabbing her keys. Not in your truck, I said. I reached into the drawer and threw her a set of keys. Take the Buick. It's got the V8, and Audrey, drive like you stole it. Audrey didn't ask questions. She sprinted out of the room. I watched on the GPS tracker as the Buick peeled out of the driveway. Parker, I said into the headset, I need you to stall the bank. Tell them there's a glitch. Tell them anything. I'm trying, Margaret, but Shaw is on the other line with the bank manager, threatening to sue them for obstruction. They're terrified. 10 minutes. I watched the dot on the map weaving through traffic on I-5. Audrey was doing 90. Mom. Audrey's voice came over the car's Bluetooth, which I had patched into the speakers. I'm at the bridge. Traffic is gridlocked. Use the shoulder, I commanded. Don't stop. There's a cop, Audrey said. Let him chase you, I said. We'll pay the ticket later. Just get to that office. I heard the engine roar as Audrey floored it. Sirens began to wail in the background. 5 minutes, Parker warned. The bank is initiating the unfreeze sequence. Audrey, you're 2 miles out. You need to get to the 40th floor. The safe is behind the painting of the ship. Code is 19458. Got it? Got it, Audrey grunted. I could hear tires screeching. 3 minutes. I'm here, Audrey yelled. I'm parking on the sidewalk. I heard the car door slam, the sound of running footsteps, the elevator ding. Come on, Audrey panted. 1 minute, Parker said. The transfer window is opening. I'm on the floor, Audrey yelled. Security is trying to stop me. Plow through them, I shouted. I heard a scuffle, a grunt, and the sound of a heavy door slamming open. I'm in. Painting. Ship. Got it. 19458. Click. I have the contract, Audrey yelled. What do I do? Page 4, Section B, Parker instructed. Take a picture, Hi-Race. Send it to me now. Sending. 30 seconds, Parker counted down. Shaw is giving the authorization codes to the bank. My screen flashed. Accounts unlocked. Transfer pending. Sent. Audrey yelled. Parker moved fast. Received. Forwarding to the bank's legal department with a cease and desist priority flag. I watched the progress bar on the transfer. Initiating transfer. 10%. 20%. Come on, I whispered. 40%. 50%. They're processing it, Parker said, typing furiously. I'm overriding the automated system with the contract clause. 80%. 90%. The screen turned red. Error. Transfer blocked. Assets frozen by shareholder action. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. We got her, Parker said, sounding exhausted. The money is locked. Shaw is screaming so loud I can hear him without the phone. Good work, Audrey, I said into the mic. Yeah, Audrey wheezed on the other end. But Mom, I'm currently being handcuffed by 3 security guards and a state trooper. Don't worry, sweetheart, I smiled. I'll pay your bail. The legal battle was far from over. Shaw was a bulldog. He managed to get Vivian released on bail, pending the extradition hearing, arguing that the kill switch was an archaic contract clause that might be invalid. 2 days later, Audrey was back in the shop, out on bail herself. I was in the war room when my private line rang. Mrs. Margaret, a man's voice, trembling. Who is this? My name is Samuel. I was Vivian's executive assistant. I knew Samuel. He was a quiet, mousy man who Vivian treated like furniture. She yelled at him for her coffee being cold. Derek used him to pick up his dry cleaning. What can I do for you, Samuel? I heard what happened, he whispered. I heard they're trying to say you're crazy. I know you're not, but Mrs. Margaret, the money theft, that's the least of it. What do you mean? Can you meet me? The parking garage on 4th and Main, level C, midnight, please come alone. It was a cliché, but clichés exist for a reason. I called Audrey, we're going for a ride. We met him in the shadows of the concrete structure. Samuel looked terrified. He handed Audrey a heavy black ledger. What is this? Audrey asked. Vivian kept 2 sets of books, Samuel said, one for the IRS and one for reality. But this, he tapped the book. This is the 3rd set. Vanguard Systems has a government contract for defense software, right? Yes, I said. Supply chain management. Vivian has been selling the user data, Samuel said, his voice shaking, to foreign buyers. For 6 years, she's been stripping the encryption codes and selling the backdoors to a broker in Beijing. She called it consulting fees. I felt the blood drain from my face. This wasn't embezzlement. This was treason. She has millions stashed in crypto, Samuel continued. But she needed your $2 million for the liquidity to buy her way into a safe haven country. She was planning to run, Mrs. Margaret. She was going to disappear. I looked at the ledger. It was all there. Dates, IP addresses, Bitcoin wallet keys. Why are you giving us this? I asked. Samuel looked down. Last week, Derek threw a stapler at me because I bought the wrong brand of sparkling water. It hit me in the face. He pointed to a bruised cut on his cheek. I'm done being their doormat. With the black ledger in Parker's hands, the game changed instantly. We didn't go to the civil courts. We went to the FBI. The incompetency motion vanished the moment the feds saw the treason evidence. The Monaco authorities were only too happy to hand Vivian and Derek over to the U.S. Marshals. They were flown back on a military transport plane. No champagne, no leg, just shackles and the realization that their lives were over. The federal detention center in Seattle was a fortress of glass and steel. I walked into the interrogation room with Audrey by my side. Vivian sat at the metal table wearing an orange jumpsuit that clashed horribly with her pale, unshaven face. She looked up, her eyes full of hate. You set me up, she hissed. You planted that ledger. I didn't plant anything, Vivian, I said, sitting down. I just found what you were too arrogant to hide. You think you've won, Vivian sneered. I still own Vanguard. I still have rights. My lawyer says, your lawyer resigned this morning, Parker said, stepping into the room. Once he realized you were paying him with funds derived from espionage, he decided to distance himself. And as for Vanguard, I said, I slid the 1995 contract across the table. Read Section 4B. Vivian looked at the paper. Her eyes scanned the lines. Majority shareholder, Obsidian Group, anonymous trustee. She looked up, confused. What is Obsidian? I said. Vivian froze. You never owned the company, Vivian. You owned 10%. I owned 90%. For 20 years, you've been walking around acting like a queen. But you were just my employee. Every bonus you took, every car you leased, every suit you bought, I signed the checks. Vivian shook her head. No, no, that's impossible. You're a nobody. You're a logistics woman. I'm the woman who owned you, I said coldly. I let you play the part because it made Brandon happy, but you broke the deal. You stole from the hand that fed you. Vivian slumped back in her chair. The arrogance evaporated, leaving only a small, frightened woman. And now, I stood up. You're fired. I left Vivian to rot and went to the next room. Brandon was there. He wasn't in cuffs yet, but he was being held as a material witness. He looked wrecked. His hair was matted, his eyes swollen shut from crying. When he saw me, he burst into fresh tears. Mom, oh God, Mom, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. They told me you were sick. I sat down. I didn't offer comfort. Stop it, Brandon. He went silent, sniffing. You stole $2 million from me, I said. You signed the transfer. Vivian made me. Did she hold a gun to your head? No. But, did she force your hand? No. But she said, I mocked. You're 40 years old, Brandon. You made a choice. You chose the mother-in-law, who promised you a Ferrari over the mother who gave you a home. He looked down at his hands. I just wanted to be someone. They made me feel special. You and Audrey, you guys are so plain. You work, you save. It's so boring. Vivian was exciting. Exciting, I repeated. Treason is certainly exciting. Mom, am I going to prison? He whispered. That depends, I said. On what? On the choice you make right now. You are facing conspiracy charges. 20 years, easy. But Parker has cut a deal with the DA. If you testify against Vivian, if you tell them everything about the data theft, the accounts, the lies, you walk. I'll do it, he cried instantly. I'll testify. I'll tell them everything. Wait, I said. That's the deal for the law. Now, here is the deal for me. He looked at me, fearful. You testify, and you get probation, but you are cut off. No inheritance, no trust fund, no house. You are on your own. He paled. But I have nothing. Kylie is going to jail. The house is in her name. I'll be homeless. Or, I said, you accept my penance. Penance, you come home, you live in your old room, and you work. You pay back the $2 million you stole. Every cent. How? He asked. I don't have a job. I found you one. I pointed to Audrey. You work for her. Brandon looked at Audrey, horrified. In the shop. But I don't know how to weld. I'm an art historian. You're a janitor, Audrey corrected him. $15 an hour, 6 days a week, 6 a.m. start. That's slavery, he gasped. That's freedom, I said. Prison is slavery. This is a chance to earn your soul back. Tuesday looked at the steel door. He looked at his manicured hands. Then he looked at Audrey's dirty boots. I'll take the job, he whispered. The trial was a spectacle. Vivian tried to plead insanity, then entrapment, then political persecution, but the black ledger was damning. When Brandon took the stand, Derek started screaming from the defense table. You traitor, after everything we gave you, we bought you clothes, we took you to Paris, you bought me with my mother's money. Brandon screamed back, finally finding his voice. You didn't love me, you just needed my signature. He laid it all out, the manipulation, the allowance note, the plan to declare me incompetent, the secret meetings with the foreign brokers. It took the jury 2 hours. Vivian, guilty on 34 counts of espionage, wire fraud and treason. Sentence, life without parole. Derek, guilty on conspiracy. Sentence, 25 years. Kylie, guilty on complicity. Sentence, 10 years. Brandon received 5 years probation and 2,000 hours of community service. The ride back from the courthouse was brutal. Audrey drove. I sat in the passenger seat. Brandon sat in the back. No one spoke. The air was thick with the wreckage of our family. When we pulled into the driveway, Audrey got out and walked straight to the front door. She didn't open the car door for him. She didn't offer to carry his bag. Brandon got out, dragging his duffel bag. He looked at the house. It didn't look like a sanctuary anymore. It looked like a rehabilitation center. Monday morning, 5:30 a.m. I watched from my window as Brandon walked down the driveway. He was wearing a pair of my old gardening jeans, held up with a belt, and a flannel shirt that was too big for him. He looked small. He waited for the bus. I didn't drive him. I wanted to, but William's voice in my head stopped me. Let him learn, Maggie. At the shop, it was hell. Audrey didn't go easy on him. Sweep the bays, she ordered. Then sort the scrap in. Separate the aluminum from the steel. If you mix them up, The smelter rejects the load and it costs me $500. Don't mess it up. The crew, big rough women named Tank and Miller, called him Prince. They laughed when he struggled to lift a bucket of rivets. They rolled their eyes when he flinched at the sparks. He came home every night, covered in grease, his hands blistered, his face gray with exhaustion. He would eat dinner in silence and collapse into bed. He hated it. He hated us, but he didn't quit. 3 months in, I went to the shop to check on the employee. Brandon was in the back, grinding rust off an old engine block. He was wearing safety goggles and a respirator. He looked miserable. I watched as he put the grinder down and tried to move a heavy steel plate. It slipped, crashed out the plate, slammed into his shin. He screamed and fell to the concrete. Clutching his leg. Audrey was there in a second. Damn it, Brandon. I told you to use the hoist for anything over 50 pounds. I was trying to be fast, he yelled back, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the grime. I was trying to show you I could do it. You can't do it, Audrey yelled. You're not built for this. You're a tourist here. You're just doing time until you can find another rich wife. I'm not, he screamed, standing up on his good leg. He pushed Audrey. It was a weak shove, but it shocked her. I'm not a tourist. I have nowhere else to go. Audrey, this is it. I ruined my life. I ruined Mom's trust. I'm a 40-year-old failure who has to sort scrap metal to pay back a debt I can never pay. I know what I am. You don't have to keep telling me. He stood there, heaving, sobbing. I just wanted to be useful for once in my life. Audrey stared at him. The anger drained out of her face, replaced by something softer. She looked at his bleeding shin. Sit down, she grunted. She grabbed the first aid kit. She knelt and rolled up his pant leg. It's just a bruise. Skin isn't broken. It hurts, he sniffed. Yeah, Audrey said. Metal hurts, that's why we respect it. She looked up at him. You sorted the rivet bin yesterday. Tank said you did it perfectly. Even organized them by thread pitch. Brandon wiped his nose. It was a mess. Drove me crazy. Tank is a slob. You did good, Audrey said. It was the first compliment she had given him in 20 years. Brandon looked at her, stunned. Then a small, tentative smile broke through the grime. 6 months later, Kylie made parole early. Overcrowding. She showed up at the house one evening. She looked thinner, desperate. Brandon was on the porch sanding a wooden box he was making. His arms were toned now. His hands were rough. Brandon, Kylie said, putting on her best puppy dog face. Baby, I missed you. It was hell in there. But I'm out now. We can start over. My cousin has a condo in Florida. We can go. I watched from the window, ready to intervene. Brandon stood up. He didn't look at her with love. He looked at her like she was a piece of scrap metal that had failed quality control. Florida, he asked. With what money, Kylie? We'll figure it out. You're smart. I'm a hustler. You're a leech, he said calmly. And I used to be one, too, but I'm not anymore. Come on, Bran. Don't be like that. We're a team. No, he said. My team is in the shop. Get off my porch, Kylie, before I call my sister. And trust me, you don't want to meet her when she's holding a welding torch. Kylie looked at him, saw the steel in his eyes, and backed away. She got in her cab and left. 1 year later, I walked into the shop. Brandon was running the CNC machine. He moved with confidence now. He was wearing coveralls that fit. Turn it off, I said. He powered down the machine. Hey Mom, what's up? I'm in the middle of a run. You're fired, I said. He froze. What? Why? I didn't mess up. The tolerances are perfect. You're fired from the shop, I said. Audrey can hire a new grunt. I handed him a portfolio. I have a new job for you. He opened it. The William Initiative. What is this? It's a non-profit, I said, dedicated to providing financial literacy and legal aid to the elderly to protect them from predatory relatives. Brandon looked at me, his face reddening. Mom, I put the $2 million into an endowment, I said. The interest generates a salary. It's yours. You're the director. I don't deserve this. No, you didn't, I said, but you earned it. Sweat equity. He looked at the logo. It was William's signature. I can't pay the debt back, Mom. Not really. You pay it back by making sure no one else does what you did, I said. You tell your story. You warn them. He nodded, tears in his eyes. I will. We walked out of the shop together. Audrey was waiting by the door. She punched him lightly on the shoulder. Don't think you're special just because you've got a desk job, she grinned. You still owe me for that broken saw blade. Put it on my tab, he smiled back. I watched them. My daughter, The builder, my son, the redeemed. The money didn't save us. The protocol didn't save us. The hard work saved us. I looked up at the sky. We're okay, Bill, I whispered. We're okay. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.